Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, June the 27th. And of course, this is the big day of the big debate. And, we're going to review it tomorrow. We'll try to get a couple of people to join us to review the debate. I don't think there's going to be anything huge happening. Um, I really don't. I think both sides kind of go in there somewhat prepared and will try to say whatever they want to say. I also think much of the country is so divided that I think most Americans pretty much know who they're going to vote for. And let's consider, for example, let's say that Joe Biden walks in tonight and he simply cannot make it the 90 minutes or he starts looking tired. What's going to happen is that he's going to be replaced by a Democrat. And the people who are going to vote for Joe Biden are going to vote for the next Democrat. So I think the country is so divided that other than that, meaning Joe Biden has a physical problem. Other than that, I really don't see any major changes or any major things. Again, he would be replaced by a Democrat. And in fact, there are some people who will tell you that the reason that the Democrats insisted of having a debate this early in the game, which is ridiculous, really. A debate in June is pretty ridiculous. I mean, normally we have these debates in October. But nevertheless, there are many people who think that the reason the Democrats did this is because they wanted to have a plan B. They wanted to have an option to replace Joe Biden if there was a problem like this. So, we will watch it. As I say, I think the worst that could happen is that Biden begins to show that he cannot go the 90 minutes. And at that point, I think Democrats will conclude that he needs to be replaced. And then we'll see what happens. That's not easy, by the way. Replacing Joe Biden is not going to be easy. A lot of people think that it's just a matter of going to the convention. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than that. But nevertheless, that's what could happen. On the Trump side, I don't really see a lot. What I would recommend to Donald Trump is just kind of keep it cool and just compare your government with the Biden government on issues like the economy, foreign policy, the border, energy production, stuff like that. I think the international situation is a huge advantage, politically, that is, for President Trump, because honestly, I'm very concerned about things like what's happening in Ukraine, the money we're spending as well in Ukraine, the situation with Taiwan. I mean, that could explode. And perhaps the one that worries me the most is the situation with Israel and the possibility that you could have a war, a real war here between Hezbollah and Israel. And of course, Hezbollah would be funded by Iran. So they would be, in essence, fighting Israel. So that does worry me. So I think the next president of the United States is going to have a big plate in front of him. And much of the stuff on that table, on that plate, is going to be foreign policy, and he's going to have to address those as quickly as possible and resolve them as soon as possible before, because nobody wants to go to, I mean, who in the world wants to have all these wars going on? I don't. I mean, so we have to find some way of negotiating solutions to some of these diplomatic or terrible international problems that have propped up during the Biden years. So that's, I think that talking about foreign policy and explaining to the American people how he can deal with it. And remember, the advantage that Trump has when he talks about anything is that he has a record. He doesn't have to promise anything. He has a record. And the record is right there for anybody to see. And that, I think, he has to keep coming back to that. Now, some people are saying that CNN is going to ask him questions about about January 6th and the election. And those questions are coming, all right? The way I would handle those questions is to say, look, whoever the moderator is, Jake or Donna, whoever's asking the question, I would say, yes, I had concerns about the election. And I expressed them, and I was concerned about maybe some of the ballots that had gone out in some states. I was concerned about it. And I have every right to question election results. But the bottom line is that Joe Biden has been president since the 20th of January, 2021. He's the president. He's been there. I left office I left office the way I was supposed to. So that's how I would tackle that. On January the 6th, I would criticize some of the people who committed the violence, but I would say two things that are very important about January the 6th. I would remind everybody that the Capitol was not protected that day. The Capitol was not protected that day. And that, I think, is a black eye on Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker. And the other thing I would say is that President Trump himself, when he was telling people to walk over to the Capitol, he said, march peacefully and respectfully. So the idea that this guy was starting an insurrection, I mean, that's pretty stupid to say that. So that's how I would address it. But no, I think Trump can do this and can do it very effectively. And let's see what happens. One more thing about this debate tonight. I think that we as Americans need to know if the president of the United States is being injected or given drugs or whatever for this debate. And the reason we need to know that, not because we want to get into his medical files, but simply because this is a man who is responsible for the nuclear weapons. And I want to make sure that he's capable of dealing with a crisis like that he doesn't have to be injected or whatever for a crisis like that. So I think that's a fair question to ask about whether or not he is taking drugs. I have a post or had a post over, I have a post over at the American Thinker today talking about some of the politics in Canada. They had a very interesting election in Ontario, nearby Toronto. And the Conservative Party basically upset the Liberals. And many people are seeing that as a sign that the Trudeau charm has sort of faded, that he's no longer as popular as he may have been. I personally think, and I don't have any expertise in this, but just by watching events and talking to people, I think Canada is going to make a huge turn to the right. I really do. And they have the Conservatives have a really attractive candidate who's very well spoken. Pierre is his first name. I cannot remember his last name, but he's a very good candidate. And if they play their cards well, I think the Conservatives could be winning a pretty significant majority. But I don't know when the elections are. They could be sooner than I think. I don't know. But Canada right now is a mess. And a lot of Canadians are very unhappy overall with Trudeau. And they've had inflation and high gas prices and high electricity prices and all that kind of stuff. And just a lot of people are very unhappy. So I think the table is set, I believe, for a sharp move to the right. And that could happen. And I hope it does, because Canada needs to change. I have a post coming out on Friday morning about Mexico. We had an interview with our good friend Alan Wall talking about the new president of Mexico, the new lady who was elected a few weeks ago, and talking about how important it is for her to detach as soon as possible from the outgoing president, Lopez Obrador. Now, they're of the same party, and her success depends 100% on him. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But he wants to push through some reforms that are basically going to create a one-party dictatorship in Mexico. The last independent branch in Mexico, the judiciary, would become elected, would go from being appointed to being elected. And that would, of course, that would mean that whoever has the ability to get elected would be a judge, and that would give the president way too much power. So there's a lot of concern about that in Mexico. And this new president coming in, this new lady, has to make it very clear to the investment people and to the business people that she is going to respect the rule of law, and that there's going to be transparency. Because if not, you've already seen some of the impact on the peso. The peso has been hit very hard by some of these ideas of having all these reforms. And I just think the country doesn't need that right now. Mexico has a tremendous opportunity right now to become even closer to the United States economically, because of many of these companies moving from China to Mexico. And I just think that this is a tremendous opportunity, and Mexico should take advantage of it by getting closer economically to the United States. And you're not going to do that if you have a president who is not, who's basically operating in a one party dictatorship. That's going to create a lot of concerns for many of these investors. So we'll see how that goes. Let me leave you today with a birthday wish. We say happy number 83 to Rico, or 81. I'm sorry, happy number 81 to Rico Petrocelli. And if you're a Red Sox fan, you know who I'm talking about. If you're not a Red Sox fan, then you probably don't know who Rico Petrocelli is. But he was a third baseman, shortstop with the Red Sox in the 60s and 70s. And I always loved his name, Rico Petrocelli. He wore I think he wore number 9. No, not number 9, but he wore, it'll come to me. But anyway, he was a third baseman, shortstop, could hit a few home runs, and one of the most popular players ever to wear the Red Sox uniform. So Rico Petrocelli, happy number 81, Rico. We hope you're doing well, and we wish you the very best. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the debate tonight, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.